This is a normal video, and this is a hyperlapse. If you want to weave these smooth, cinematic glides into your own videos, the hyperlapse mode on your DJI camera is the tool you need. I've been shooting a lot of hyperlapses recently across all the handheld DJI cameras I own, and in this video I'm going to share everything I've learned, from shooting your first hyperlapse, to choosing the right rate setting, taking subject tracked hyperlapses, and even adding motion blur for extra impact. But before we get into that, let's quickly define what a hyperlapse actually is. And to understand that, we need to start with its foundation, the time-lapse. In an ordinary time-lapse, the camera captures individual frames at fixed intervals, say half a second or two apart, and then plays them back at a normal frame rate, like 30 FPS. The result you get is compressed time and that fast-moving, visually striking effect. A hyperlapse works on the same principle, but with one key difference. The camera itself is moving a significant distance during the capture, instead of being stationary. So at this point you might be thinking, if a hyperlapse is just a time-lapse taken while moving, why do we even need a dedicated hyperlapse mode at all? And there are two main reasons for that. First, and most importantly, stabilization. The standard time-lapse mode assumes your DJI camera is either stationary on a tripod or perhaps moving slowly and smoothly on a camera slider. Because of that, it doesn't apply any stabilization. If you try to create a hyperlapse using the ordinary time-lapse mode, you can end up with a very shaky result like this. Hyperlapse, on the other hand, is stabilized by design, either using gyro data on cameras like the Osmo Action and Osmo 360, or a physical gimbal on devices like the Osmo Pocket 3 or Osmo Mobile. This is what enables that smooth motion at the end. The second reason is the degree of speed change. Time-lapses are often designed to compress hours or even days into seconds. The shortest interval you can even select on time-lapse mode is half a second, and much longer intervals are often used. The extreme speed up is perfect for clouds, sunsets, or a growing plant for example, but not so great for human scale movement. Hyperlapses work at much milder speed multipliers, like 2 times, 5 times, or 10 times real time. This more gentle time compression means motion stays smooth and recognizable. So whether you're walking around or biking through the city, you'll avoid giant, disorienting jumps between frames. In short, stabilization and less speed up are what differentiate the hyperlapse mode from the time-lapse mode. Now that you know what a hyperlapse is, let's look at how to actually shoot one on your DJI camera. The process is pretty much the same across all DJI cameras. Go into the time-lapse shooting mode, and from there select hyperlapse. By default, the rate is set to auto, so let's leave it there for now. Now all you have to do is hit record and start moving. And here's the resulting walking hyperlapse. It really is that easy. Now let's look at how we can change the speed of a hyperlapse using the rate setting, which is the only hyperlapse specific parameter there is to change. If you select the 2x rate, the resulting footage is simply sped up by 2 times. At 5x, it's 5 times faster, and so on. You can go all the way up to 30x, which is the highest selectable rate. And then finally, there's the auto rate option, which is the option I usually use. Instead of applying a fixed rate, using auto will dynamically adjust the rate based on how much movement there is. Essentially, the camera uses a higher rate when you're moving slowly or stopped, and a lower rate when you're moving faster, so the final result feels smoother and less stop-start. While DJI doesn't publish the exact algorithm, this old forum reply from a DJI admin can give us a basic idea of how auto might adjust the rate depending on the situation. Personally, I think auto is the easiest option, and it's what I use most of the time. That said, it can sometimes feel a bit too fast, like in this urban cycling clip, so it's worth experimenting with fixed rates depending on your use case. And if you're happy to edit in post, using a slower fixed rate like 2x or 5x gives you the most flexibility in post. You can always speed up a hyperlapse later, but slowing one down will give you choppy or laggy looking motion. Now, whenever you start recording a hyperlapse, you'll notice a 1x toggle suddenly appear on screen. And this is what it does. Tapping this will instantly switch the recording to real-time, normal speed video right in the middle of your hyperlapse sequence. This is a powerful tool for storytelling. You can seamlessly mix your sped up travel segments where you go from A to B with real-time moments for the more exciting stuff. Notice how when we switch to 1x, we also get full audio back, which can be useful for capturing ambience or commentary. And whenever you're ready to continue the journey, just tap the toggle again to go back to recording in fast forward. This edit will all be done for you in camera, leaving you with just a single, ready to go video file. One thing to note, this 1x toggle feature isn't available on the Osmo 360 at the time of making this video. So far, I've mostly shown hyperlapses where the camera is simply aimed forward. However, another common technique is to lock the camera onto a subject. This creates a cool effect where the environment moves around your subject rather than the camera just pushing forward. The way you achieve this will depend on your camera. If you're using a gimbal-based camera like the Osmo Pocket 3 or a phone on the Osmo Mobile, you can take advantage of DJI's Active Track feature to automatically track a subject for you. On the Osmo Pocket 3, you simply double tap the subject, while on the Osmo Mobile, you draw a box around it. Active Track makes this all very easy, but you do need to be careful. If something passes between you and the subject, the camera can easily lose its lock and end the shot early, which has happened to me many times. With non-gimbal cameras like the Osmo Action, you'll have to stick with the old-fashioned way of manually pointing your camera at the subject as you move. I found this actually works better in many situations, since you don't have to worry about losing your target lock, but it does require more effort and attention on your part. And finally, there's the Osmo 360, which is definitely the most powerful option for tracked and creative hyperlapses. Since it captures everything around you, you have complete freedom in how you track and reframe your hyperlapse in post. Now let's talk about motion blur, which can add a nice sense of speed and smoothness to your hyperlapse. True motion blur comes from slowing the shutter speed, but this is where things get tricky. With handheld, non-drone hyperlapses, lowering the shutter speed can introduce smearing and other strange artifacts, because there's a lot of electronic image stabilization happening behind the scenes. On top of that, the slowest shutter speed you can even select in hyperlapse mode is 1/30th of a second. While that will definitely give you motion blur, it's often not dramatic enough for the extreme sense of speed you see in a final hyperlapse, where you could effectively be moving at 600 miles an hour. Because of that, I often just add motion blur in post. It lets you create that hyperspeed, warp drive look without having to fight stabilization issues or worry about manual exposure and ND filters while you're shooting. As for which software, funnily enough, I've been using Insta360's Motion ND effect. DJI Studio did recently add artificial motion blur as well, but as of now it's only available on Apple Silicon Macs or newer iPhones, which isn't helpful if you're editing on a Windows PC like I am. Just be aware that fake motion blur can easily look unnatural, so use it sparingly and always ask yourself whether it's actually improving the shot or not. So after all of this, you might be wondering, can't I just achieve a hyperlapse by speeding up a normal video in post? Do I even need this dedicated hyperlapse mode? And you'd be right. If you're already shooting normal video with stabilization enabled, speeding up that footage in post will basically give you the same result. I initially thought that hyperlapse mode might be using some kind of special stabilization, maybe smoothing motion across larger time windows, but in practice it appears to use the same underlying stabilization system as regular video recording. That said, the dedicated hyperlapse mode still does have its place. It saves storage space, gives you the final product on the memory card ready to go, and if you use auto rate, it gives you that smoother result that would otherwise require a lot of manual speed ramping across different parts of the clip. So personally, I think hyperlapses make the most sense when you're recording over long distances or durations, where storage efficiency becomes a real concern. But if you're only covering a shorter stretch and want the best possible result, shooting a normal video might be the better option. You get more fine-grained control over retiming in post, and if you shoot at 60 FPS, you even have the flexibility to mix in slow motion when it makes sense. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments.